back. But before we continue, let's watch a clip where the President Uhuru Kenyatta is launching this project.
And I am confident that with the kind of speed that they are moving at, the indicated date of March for completion of this road is bound to be met. And I will be very proud to be able, as Waziri here again has said, to drive all the way from Machakos turnoff all the way to Rironi, and hopefully at that point launch the road from Rironi to Mau Summit, thereby reducing the gridlock that people have experienced that has added to the cost of doing business in our country.
And now, coming back to you, Mr. Jeff, we have seen that Nairobi Expressway, the vehicles that will be using this path will be paying depending on the size of the vehicle. And again, but we have seen they have considered that there's some vehicles that will be exempted from this payment, like that of the police, ambulance, and maybe the army, together with those of the ministers in the government. But then I've seen they have rejected the motorbike or the boda and the truck to use this way. Do you think it's a fair way?
Well, according to me, it's fair. I think what they are trying to do is to make sure there will not be a lot of confusion. Because if you imagine there are the borders there, there might end up to be a bit of traffic. So I think I agree with that. And also the trucks. I think the entire thing, what they want to do is to make sure that things will be moving very fast. The trucks can cause traffic and motorbikes too. So that is fair. And for the government vehicles, that is also fair, because if you consider ambulances and if you consider government vehicles, maybe the army is rushing somewhere, that time to pay, and the fact that these are government things, so they don't have to pay. I think that's fair.
Okay, Mr. Hassan, I think it will be unfair for somehow, because some boda guys will be talking like the government is for the rich people. Don't you think the government could have considered that?
For me, I totally oppose that opinion, because when you're trying to say everyone can pay, the boda and the truck driver themselves, they can pay, because everybody is rushing somewhere, looking his or her own living sustenance. So for me, I think that idea is unacceptable. It needs to be referred back.
But I've also seen that they have maybe introduced a footbridge for the common citizen. Is that not a good idea? Maybe to cater for the common mananchi, if they want to be able to pay the 300.
For me, it is a good idea. That project, it has several phases. We know they have differentiated the terms of those cars that are using and the pedestrian, but actually exempting some of the societies using that road is actually out of traffic, but in that pedestrian just enable them to use it. Seems very well.
So, Mr. Jeff, maybe I can ask this question before we go to the next. Do you think that now, like us in Kenya, somehow some people are saying that this project is not beneficial? Now I'm like asking myself, you'll just be paying 300 bob or maybe to 400 depending on your vehicle and what you're carrying, and maybe the quality, or let's say the type of the vehicle. Now, do you think that you can like lose maybe a business that you are to do of that would have earned you $1 million because of just 300?
Well, I'll base my argument on a bigger perspective, because yes, this will save money. Someone has a business deal of 300 billion, so they would rather pay 300 bob and get there early and make their plan. But how many Kenyans have a 300 billion deal in Kenya? That's the big question, because if you look at the rates between the rich and the poor, the rich are more. The rich are less and the poor are more. So how many people we are saving? The Uhuru Kenyatta government, the President Uhuru Kenyatta government favors the rich. And the problem is that the rich are few and the poor are the majority. So this will save money, but how many people is it going to save? the other question is, you know, the people who are not saying, those who are not saying this is not beneficial, we are looking at the fact that we are also going to be paying for the next over 20 years. So if this was a project that has been completely done by our government for the sake of the common mananchi, and we will not have to pay, that would have been better. Would have been like, this is okay. So when we put into context the fact that this is going to cost the common mananchi, he will have to pay, and not for 1 or 2 or 10, for 20 years, that's where the problem comes in. But for in my opinion, because we have already done this project, we should now stop focusing on whether it's beneficial or not, because we cannot do away with it. Now it's up to us to decide how we are going to run it and to manage it in a better way.
I agree with you, but you know, once we encourage it and you don't like it, what will happen? The government will want to do more of this project. But Mr. Hassan, I think the government has done something good, because if I think about these big countries like US and China, you will all consider those countries got loans somewhere. Like they have borrowed to do their own things, but they have managed it. Okay, so I believe when Kenya is able to manage the loans, and the only way to manage this is like doing that, because these projects have not earned of any scandal about it. So I believe it's a utilization of funds well. Don't you think it's something nice?
For me, in my suggestion, before I come into that point of this issue, I could have said that the current government of President Uhuru did a lot of favor for the both people, be it the rich or the lower people, because we had seen that during the COVID-19 breakout, that is back in 2020, the government initiated a small project for the Simultane, for the youth who are jobless, so that they can have something to get their daily meal. I think that idea was very sounding clearly, but in this project, it has a lot of things, because for first, it creates a revenue, as we earlier mentioned. On the other hand, it shows that the country is in a somewhere that can make it in infrastructure in a good way. Apart from Thika Super Highway, I think that road will be also having a good face, so that we can enable us to borrow another money. You know, being a developing country, that's you cannot enable to use your own revenue to build a road. You must gain something from foreigners, so that you can sustain your economy, and later on we can repay as time goes on by trying to build our economy.
Yeah, I think that's true, because I think Kenya is also rushing after being also part of the economy that is growing so fast. So in case we say that Nairobi Expressway will not be of any benefit, you've got to understand that this is one of the longest way around East African countries. So Kenya seems to have taken an extra mile, and this, I think, it's a good idea, because it will actually attract so many foreigners and infrastructure, making our maybe a capital city so beautiful. So Mr. Jeff, we have seen that this way, the vehicle that will be using this road, they will be paying depending on the size of the vehicle, and approximately they will be paying like 300, and depending on the size of the vehicle, to 400, 300 to 400. But we have seen that the boda guys and the truck drivers have been be denied the use of this law. Do you think it's something fair for them?
Yeah, according to me, it's very fair. What the government is trying to do is to ease traffic in the Nairobi Expressway, because you know the main agenda of this project was to make sure there will not be traffic. So you can imagine them when they open that road, and then the trucks and the bodas are using, and then there will be a lot of confusion, and then there's traffic again. You see, the problem will not have been solved. So at the end of the day, what the government wants to do is to ensure smooth running in the Nairobi Expressway. So this is what is their main agenda. So I think it's fair. At the end of the day, they are going to achieve what they wanted, and it will take less time to come from Jomo Kenyatta International Airport all the way to the Nairobi CBD. So I think that's a fair thing.
So Mr. Hassan, not allowing maybe boda people to use this bag, don't you think that it will look like this way is for the rich people only in Kenya?
For me, I would say it is unfair, because whether you are rich or or not rich, we have an equal right. Everybody is entitled to the Constitution of Kenya by saying that we have a same right. So I think it's not good idea to separate people, because the one who is rich, the situation him or her is going to make his deals. At the same time, the border riders has something to do, because everybody finally they're working for their family. I think it is something that need to be reorganized and to be revised so that we are all equal.
Okay, I would say that also we have seen them introducing the footbridge where the common mwananchi will be traveling through. So if you don't have to use the vehicle, you're not paying for using the footbridge. Don't you think it has considered the common mwananchi or wanjiko?
In that point, they a bit consider the common wananchi, because for them to have a smooth road, they thankfully separated. But it seems a good idea. I support that one, but not in a full one.
Okay, Jeff, do you support that?
Well, I support it because the common mwananchi will be able to, if you don't have enough money to pay, you can walk to the Nairobi Expressway. But Kenya is at a place whereby if you look at this country in the next 20 or 30 years, it will be hard for you to survive if you do not have money. And one thing is that you cannot be ensured that every citizen in this country in the next 20 or 30 years will be able to have enough money. So this is going to create inequality, because some people will just be striving to get money that they cannot walk through the Nairobi Expressway so that they can pay. Then there is you're in the car and him is walking. So if he's walking, this guy doesn't have money. And if I'm in the car and I'm able to pay to pass to Nairobi Expressway, it means I have money. So you see, gender inequality at the end of the day. I mean, not gender inequality, but there is inequality between the rich and the poor.
Okay, I saw another text, but in the maybe on a platforms, that is YouTube. Someone was commenting and saying that this way seems to be something so interesting for Kenyans, because they will not be having these cops who often find them picking maybe corruption from the drivers. So this way seems like something that is like straight way. Once you start, you start walking through it. There's nothing like stopping or doing anything. So they were saying it's something interesting. Do you think it's something to make sense out of it? Like there's no place to be like being stopped to pay this and this. You're carried to excess people.
It seems a good idea since they're trying to avoid having a corruption, but still, we as a Kenyans, we manage to walk up with corruption. There will be still a scandal. I think they will be there, but eventually, whether they try to manage that one, but what I foresee that there will be still a corruption.
So, Mr. Jeff, how do you think we can make it so that there be no corruption totally in that expression?
But when the Chinese government, I mean, when the Kenyan government comes in, and also the Chinese government will be involved in collecting this money. But it will be involved until they have their profit and everything back. Now, after those over 20 years, then the project will completely be ours. So it's up to us to have officers who are able to be fair and without corruption. But imagine what's the benefit of there being no corruption in the Nairobi Expressway, but immediately when you are from the Nairobi Expressway, corruption begins there. Because that's not the only road you're going to use in Kenya. Before you get to the Nairobi Expressway, maybe you are from, let's say, Nyeri, you have been going to Nairobi, use the Nairobi Expressway. So from Nyeri to Nairobi, there's corruption. Then when you go over the Nairobi Expressway, there's no corruption. You see, at the end of the day, what you want is the entire country corruption should not be there.
Okay, that's we leave for the viewers to think about it. But then we go to the last question. That we have seen this project, the entire project. We have not heard of any scandal or corruption in it. Comparing it to the government projects, we have seen that the government has always been having this corruption. Even some projects failing to come to a completion because of corruption. Do you think that this is a very good lesson for governments of Kenya to learn that they can do projects without corruption?
For me, in that project, whether those investors are handling that process, still our government are having some shares to control that issue. Because we are the country who are providing the security to protect those who are building that frauds, and also we need to provide everything they need. I think it's good.
So, Mr. Jeff, what's your take on that?
Well, the main reason why there's not been corruption is because this has not only been a Kenyan project, but the Chinese government also regulated everything that was happening so that it can ensure that the money they have given has been used appropriately. So this is to show the Kenyan government that if we are serious and if we take things seriously, it's possible for us to do things without corruption.
Now, because I think Kenyans will never like always say that there will be never corruption because they have been having these things continuously. Do you think we can suggest that maybe any project that Kenyan will have to carry, it's maybe involved with another country so that we may avoid these corruptions? Do you support that?
No, I don't support. You know, as this current government is trying to fight the corruption, but the problem is the side of the citizens. Because you are the one who is paying the corruptions, and you give someone who is a state controlled person, maybe let's say you give a certain scenario, the police officers, because that money is from our pocket. We are given to another pocket. So we are the problem. We have to reshuffle our minds so that we can work out these corruption scenarios. But I think it's not a good idea that every project should be handled by another country or someone who is from a foreigner who had invested to supervise all the things. I think that idea is not suggested. But if the country managed to be a stage to overcome the corrupt things, I think we'll be trying to have something, but not fully one.
Okay, I've seen that many projects here in Kenya, they have been carried out by the Chinese, and it has been a success because so many like projects have come to a complete and successful high quality, unlike those that were given to Kenyans, where we have seen so many corruption going to. Don't you think that it's a good idea if we may be using these people maybe to develop our country?
You know, Kenya is an independent state. The moment we start over depending on other countries, then it's like we are being colonized again. So this is time for Kenya. Even if these guys are doing things for us, it's time that we man up and find a way to do things on our own. Otherwise, if you look at China, it's controlling most of the African states because we have given them too much. So Kenya should learn a lesson. We should leave them to do the most important projects, the ones that are beyond us. But for the others, we need to try. Otherwise, we will completely be in debt because Uhuru has done Nairobi Expressway. The next government that comes, let's say they do another project. We pay Nairobi Expressway for 20 years, for over 20 years. The next government brings us another project of infrastructure. We pay for 30 years, another one for 40. Then that means for the next 100 years, we will stay in debt. So it's time that we come out and decide to be independent.
Okay, before we come to the end of this show, I would like maybe 2 minutes, you maybe say something to Kenyans. Mr. Asim, start with you.
Our dear viewers, kindly let's utilize very well this project. It will help us in many issues, as we know that for having a long jam in this Thika superhighway, it will make us easy to reach other roads like the one of heading to Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And it seems because having a developed infrastructure, the city of the whole country, it will enable us to get a tourist, which will boost our economy by the art of getting a tax as a revenue. Our dear viewers, encourage you, let us utilize very well and cope up with government rules. If you are told to pay money, you pay, because since we know it's not a must, it's an option whether you use or not.
Maybe you can tell them where to find you in the...
You can get me in my Facebook page, which is Hassan Mukhtar Official. At the same time, I have my personal Twitter account, which is Hassan_Khashoggi.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff. Maybe you can take it.
Yeah, what I would like to tell fellow Kenyans is that the Nairobi Expressway has already been constructed, so this is not the time to negotiate if it will benefit us or not. It's over, because if we say it will not benefit us, at the end of the day, it's already here with us. So what we need to do is to focus on how it's going to help us as a country, and to focus on paying the debt. And the other thing is that as a country, this is an election year. So it's time that don't just complain that this is not happening, that's happening. No, your vote counts. Go out, register as a voter. If you see someone is not going to take our country in the right way, this is your bargaining chance. This is your time to vote them out and vote for the people you believe will take our country to a better place. And you can also get me on social media, on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Candid Mwendo.
Thank you so much, my viewers. This has been Inside Kenya show, where I've been your host, Armstrong Moneni. And my take on this, I will say that Kenyans, let's try to view things in a positive way. Let's see that we can become those rich people that we are complaining about. So let's not always be complaining. Let's see things in a positive, in a way that we can be able to achieve things despite of what. I have been your host, Armstrong Nene, and until next time, it's a goodbye.